Thank you very much, Markus. So indeed, a number of you had interest to get an update of Part 26. Quite up to date because there were some changes this year. So we decided to take this as part of the program, and we can see for the next years whether it makes sense to continue this regular update on Part 26 topics. Maybe to start with and to introduce the topic, just to refresh your memory of what are we talking about actually, what is Part 26. So when we are in the CS25 world, when we introduce new CS25 certification specifications or amend existing ones, those are applicable for new applications that we receive, for new designs for the future, or for new STCs or major changes in the scope of the Change Product Rule 21A 101. So these design improvements, these improvements of the specifications have a consequence for future designs. But there are also some important design improvements that we want to also apply retrospectively, where there is a huge safety benefit to apply them retrospectively. And the tool actually for that we have, or to be more precise, that the Commission has, is Part 26. I say Commission because of the retrospective nature of these measures, it can only be adopted in a law, in a legislation. So Part 26 actually is a regulation different from CS25 that is adopted by the agency. So these retrospective measures, we do have two tools. We can either, with a relatively limited impact, all of these retrospective activities by nature have an impact on your business. The limited impact is that we require production cut-in. We already have an approved design, an approved TC, but as of a certain moment in the future, normally 1-2 years after the adoption of the Part 26 rule, you have to stop producing in accordance with the approved design, and for that bit have to also comply with the Part 26 requirement. Or, if it's even more important that there's an immediate change, then we can also mandate a retrofit into the existing fleet. Also aircraft that have already been produced, which are flying, can be required to be retrofitted. This, of course, has a much higher impact. So you see that the big work in the Part 26 world is to do a proper regulatory impact assessment. Very often the regulatory text is only 5-6 lines, but the majority of the work is on assessing the impact for these retrospective measures and finding the right tool to achieve the safety improvement. Together with my colleagues Xavier Vergez and Auroque, I want to introduce you where we are today with Part 26, what has recently changed, and what we are actually working on for the future. So, beginning this year, there has for the very first time been an amendment to the Part 26 regulation. So in terms of number, the Part 26 regulation is a regulation from 2015 with the number 640, and this regulation at that point in time actually only transposed what was already existing in the JAA world in JAR 26. Now, beginning of this year, with the regulation 2019-133, which was adopted in January, for the first time we introduce new additional airworthiness requirements, new Part 26 requirements for operations. And this regulation introduces three topics: replacement of halon, seat crash worthiness, and thermal acoustic insulation material. To show you a little bit, I don't want to go into very much detail. I don't want to fully read out these slides, but just to give you an idea of what we have on these three topics, and especially what you see here highlighted in red, the compliance dates. So looking at halon replacement, we decided for a production cutoff, so the first tool. There are two aspects to it. For fire extinguisher, which are placed in the lavatory waste receptacles, for any aircraft that goes out of the production line and receives a first certificate of airworthiness after February 2020 has to use other agents than Halon. And for portable fire extinguisher, the measure is already in place. So the regulation was adopted beginning of the year. And since 19th of May this year, any aircraft coming out of the production line cannot have any handheld fire extinguisher using Halon any longer. So there was a very short transition period to that. My colleague Yuri can give you some additional information on recently published guidance. So Yuri, if I can give you the floor for a minute.
Yeah, we have published last week what we call the Halon Guide. So it's a document developed conjointly by EASA and the European Commission to the attention of the industry applicants to help them to interpret the ozone regulation and to understand, depending on their product, on the application date, when or if the Halon regulation applies to them. So we hope that it will be helpful for you, and we invite you to have a look at this document. It is published on our different social medias. And it was also a kind of gift to compensate that you cannot attend to the Christmas market this year.
Thank you, Yuri. Good tip. On seat crash worthiness, operators of large aeroplanes used in commercial air transport, also here we have a production cut-in for aircrafts first issued with a C of A after 18th of February 2021, shall ensure that the aeroplane seats in the cabin are equipped with 16G seats. And on thermal acoustic insulation material, you find a production cut-in, but also a retrofit requirement. So it's the only retrofit requirement in this package. So the retrofit bit is the first indent, sub-indent that you will see on the slide on the right-hand side. So when, for existing already flying aircrafts today, after 18th of February 2021, the insulation material is replaced, it has to comply, the new insulation material has to comply with the new standard. And then a production cut-in, any aircraft coming out of the production line and issued with a C of A, first C of A, after the same date, 2021, also has to comply if it has a passenger capacity of more than 20 or more. And this is what you see on the slide, almost the full regulatory text in Part 21. It's 90% the wording that you see in the regulation. So you see it's a very short regulatory drafting, but when you have a look, especially in the opinion and the NPAs, the impact assessment is very heavy until we decide that we require such a retrospective measure. So this was the first ever amendment of Part 26. We have some ongoing rulemaking activities where we also addressed and assessed whether it's necessary to amend Part 26 with regard to further topics. And there are two opinions currently pending with the European Commission for adoption for further amendment of Part 26. The first topic is quite an old one. Also relating to the title of the topic. It's about aging aircraft structure. We issued the opinion in 2016. And then there is a recent opinion from a couple of weeks ago, which addresses two topics. It's the reduction of runway excursion and the conversion of Class D cargo compartments. The Commission has started to work on these topics. They will be dealt with in a single package. So what we can expect is to see the next amendment of Part 26 being adopted by the Commission, probably out of these three topics. I would like to give you, together with my colleague Xavier, or actually I will ask my colleague Xavier Vergez, to give you a brief insight into each of these three topics so that you have an idea what we already proposed to the Commission and what may come your way next. So Xavier, please.
Slide. So good afternoon, everybody. Yes, so regarding the first topic, for which the opinion was published in October 2016, so obviously it has been delayed, not for technical concerns, but because of a need to absorb a certain backlog at the Commission level and to make prioritization, but now it is being worked on actively. The objective is here to better mitigate the phenomena of aging aircraft structure as applicable to existing large aeroplanes and future large aeroplanes. And the particular risk that we are focusing on are the fatigue of the basic type design, the widespread fatigue damage, the corrosion, the effects of the corrosion, the damaging effects, and the fatigue of changes and repairs applied to the aeroplane. The proposal affects both the design approval holders and also the applicants for TC, STC, and repair or changes to those products. And it also affects, obviously, the operators and the owners, because the ultimate goal is that the maintenance program are amended to better control those risks and to implement corrective actions when necessary. So the proposed regulation is relatively complex, and therefore it considers different time periods in terms of compliance that are proportionate to the efforts which is needed to comply with those requirements. The second topic, which is part of the last opinion that we've just issued in October, is the reduction of runway excursions. So runway excursions is one of the two top safety items that is regularly identified in our annual safety review. So it's number 2 in the previous one, and the one before it was number 1. Design solution exists to help the pilots of large airplanes to identify when the aircraft is at risk of not being able to stop in the available runway distance, either during approach or even after touchdown. And so we think that we should have those systems, those means available for new design, of course. So we are preparing a CS25 amendment soon about that, but also to aircraft that are produced from a certain date. So based on our impact assessments, we have proposed this way, not a complete retrofit, but a production cut-in. And this will allow to mitigate mainly, to prevent mainly longitudinal runway excursions, but also in some cases lateral excursions, because we often see some lateral excursions combined with longitudinal runway excursions. And the last one aims at mitigating the risk of uncontrolled fire in cargo or baggage compartments. So more specifically, the risk that exists with Class D compartments, which is a category of compartment that is not allowed anymore on new designs since some years already, but that are still flying today, at least in EASA member states. And so we think that the risk posed by those compartments, especially having in mind recent elements that increase this risk, like the widespread transportation of lithium batteries. So we think that those compartments should be converted. So to comply either with the specifications of Class C or the ones from Class E compartments in terms of detection of a fire and means to extinguish the fire. The proposal includes requirements for full retrofit, of course, and we have proposed 3 years after the entry into force of the regulation. So that's all from my part. Michael will now give you an overview of what will come next, potentially, as included in some rulemaking projects.
Thank you, Xavier. So when you study the EPAS, and especially the rulemaking program in the EPAS, or follow the terms of reference of a number of CS27, CS29, CS25 rulemaking tasks, you will also see that very often at the beginning we put in there that we also want to assess whether it's suitable to also address the design improvement retrospectively. So in addition to the 25 improvements, we'll very often have in the scope of the project also the assessment of whether it's necessary to also amend Part 26. And in the current program, we have this foreseen for 6 ongoing rulemaking tasks. In terms of timelines, you can package them in these 2 packages, where in the first package, according to the current planning, we may come up with an opinion in 2021. And for the second package, the timeline for the opinion is beyond 2022 for an opinion. That does mean an adoption maybe a year, 1.5 years later. For on-ground wing contamination, we have almost completed the impact assessment. And there it looks like that we will not propose a Part 26 change. But you will see the NPA, including the impact assessment, at the beginning of next year. For helicopter ditching, we are still in the middle of the regulatory impact assessment. There we plan the NPA, the Notice of Proposed Amendment, towards mid next year. And for tire pressure monitoring system, we have concluded the impact assessment and we are preparing the NPA. And there you will find a proposal for a small amendment in relation to the ICAs for tire pressure monitoring systems. So these 3 topics, the first, let's say 118 and 586, probably with no or very minimal impact on Part 26. Helicopter ditching we have to see, but I expect that this will result in some Part 26 changes. And the 3 other rulemaking tasks on rotorcraft survivability, rotorcraft oil monitoring, and rotorcraft bird strike have just commented. So we are in a very early process. We have started to collect the data, and we will start doing the proper impact assessment in the coming months. So it's difficult at that stage, it's impossible at this stage to tell you whether this will lead into a Part 26 amendment, but for those tasks, we are considering this as an option subject to the regulatory impact assessment that we are conducting. So, time for Slido.
Yes, and we got a few questions, and you have them in front of you.
So what is the agency's expectancy from a DOA holder during certification activities in terms of referring to CS26? Yes, so we do have a certification specification in relation to Part 26, which gives the means of compliance with Part 26. Either you find specific means of compliance or a reference into the existing specifications for new designs, so in CS25, CS27 or 29. So these certification specifications should guide you to comply with the Part 26 requirements. Between the operator and the CAMO managing the aircraft and the DOA modifying the same aircraft, who is responsible for ensuring compliance with Part 26, CS26, it's predominantly the operator. And you will see it in Part 26 itself. We will always identify who is responsible for what. So if we would go back to the slides on Halon, seat crashworthiness, we try to put there in the first line who is responsible. Operators of large airplanes, operators of large airplanes used in commercial air transport. So the primary responsibility is always with the operator. We do have, and we will have some requirements where we will address the TC holder. In the aging aircraft proposal, for example, we also address certain requirements on the TC holder. But you will see that always directly from the Part 26 text. For will future TCDS amendments reflect the new Part 26 requirements? That questions I have to pass on. Do we have a chief PCM in the room? Any one of my colleagues know whether this will be reflected in the TCDS? In case this will lead to a change approval?
I think the answer is no. It will not be reflected.
Will not be? Okay. But then we will reply to that specifically after the workshop. Okay. Aging aircraft structures, Leo, be prepared. Is the EASA rule in line with the FAA requirement? Is the FAA stage process static threshold interval recognized and accepted? 99% yes. So the expert for the rulemaking task is in the room. So yes. So actually with this rulemaking task we catch up with what the FAA already has done a couple of years ago. Will the aging aircraft change under consideration be similar to the CFR 26 subpart C and E? So yes. Halon extinguisher, how is first CFA defined, e.g. for an aircraft operated outside the EASA until now is phased into the EASA environment and gets its first CFA? So it's probably not part of the Halon guidance because it's a generic question, right?
No, it's not part of the Halon guidance, but in this rulemaking task, we have a line, so to say, with ICAO Annex 6, where it's the same requirement, and they are also talking about the first individual airworthiness certificate. And in our case, also, the spirit is really the first one, no matter where the aircraft was registered.
Okay, thanks. Which is the status of approved ETSO for portable fire extinguisher? We haven't worked on the ETSO. I look at the same person again. ETSO for fire extinguisher. There was no change in the past 2 amendments, if I remember correctly. No. Maybe Federico, can you clarify what you had in mind with that? Do you have a microphone?
Was it the one regarding the ATSO, right?
Yes.
Just to know if there are ATSO approved Halon replacement portable storage extinguisher.
We do have ETSO on fire extinguisher, yes.
But no, the ATSO, yes, I know. But if you have approved...
if you issued authorizations.
Yes.
Well, you should be able to find that on our website because we publish all ETSO authorizations on our website. And if you go there, you will find either by ETSO standard, by company, the approval and the reference. So the data is available on our website. Marco? For the microphone.
There is no ETSO approved for the time being, but we have already application for Halon Replacement handheld fire extinguisher, yes.
So is it possible to request a derogation to national authority about the use of portable fire extinguisher in relation to its operational use? So Yuri, I think this is described in the Halon guidance.
Yeah, in the Halon guide, we give the first steps on how to apply to derogation, but regarding the ozone regulation. So here, I'm not sure if we are talking about the ozone regulation or Part 26.
Part 26, if Federico again. Yes, yeah.
Then
Part
if it's in relation with Part 26, so it's the flexibility provisions of the basic regulation which applies.
Yeah.
And the operator can request a derogation to its competent authority, indeed.
Yes. So what used to be Article 14, which is now Article 71.
71, yeah.
And then, are there any changes anticipated to Class F cargo compartments? To my knowledge, no. Yuri, did we discuss that as part of the rulemaking task? No. So no consideration ongoing.
Okay, thanks a lot, Michael, Xavier, and Yuri for the update on CS26.